Hello everyone, it is Joe here from Omnipoke, the channel that brings you guys everything Pokemon, and we've recently had the full Eevee Heroes set revealed from Japan. Now, this is either going to be part of our Evolving Skies set in August, which means we have 1 month pre-rotation with all of those team-up and tag team set cards that we can play with alongside these new cards. But I think it's pretty unlikely that these cards are going to be in Evolving Skies. I would have thought if they're basing a set around evolutions, they wouldn't be calling it Evolving Skies. This is going to be like a Rayquaza-based set, right? That'll be the flagship Pokemon. So this feels more like, to me at least, that it's going to be a November set. So I'm going to be talking about most of these cards with an eye on post-rotation meta, more often than not. Even if we do have that 1 month in August, I think more people will find it relevant to talk about these cards in a Sword and Shield on sort of format. So that's what we will be discussing today. Some interesting cards here. It's only a mini set, of course, so there will be more cards to come. But this is, at least for now, the Eevee Hero stuff that we have to go off of. I'm going to skip all the way down to the bottom to talk about the trainers first. These are the most universal. These are the most worth discussing for, you know, the current decks that we have in the format, as well as giving us some context to some of the Pokemon as well in a second. So we start off with Vigor Shake. It is an item card that ends your turn upon use, and it says search your deck for a card that evolves from one of your Pokemon and put it onto that Pokemon to evolve it, then shuffle your deck. This card can be used during your first turn or on a Pokemon that's been put into play this turn as well. So think of it as an item version of Wally that ends your turn, essentially, is the idea here. And it's an interesting card for sure. I think I'm always skeptical of cards that has that end of turn text, because then it's competing with the likes of Gormandize, the likes of Intrepid Sword, and just attacking in general. So in the sort of mid to late game, this card is looking very, very bad, to be honest. You only want to be using that Vigor Shake to ramp into some evolving Pokemon or into some VMAXs quite quickly. So my initial thoughts was a sort of greens-based engine. That, of course, is rotating. So maybe some sort of Peony VMAX deck where you're trying to ramp into that VMAX that little bit quicker, just establish it on board. Or if you're looking to play some Stage 2 Pokemon and you want to jump straight into your middle evolution to then ramp into that Stage 2 the following turn. I feel like this isn't going to be overtaking something like a Rare Candy engine because it's so specific to ending your turn. That speed of evolving into that Stage 2 isn't the most relevant, I don't think. Maybe something like Gardevoir, it could be interesting, where you can get energy acceleration going a little bit more quickly. But again, you don't really want to fill your deck with 4 copies of this because the Shake gets terrible in the mid-game. So I feel like this is still on the weaker side of things. I don't think we have the engines right now in the Sword and Shield On format to really support this sort of card. So I think this isn't the salvation that Stage 2s are looking for. Unfortunately, we're still stuck with Rare Candy nonsense for the most part. For Stage 1s, there are some spicy Stage 1s still in our format, and it can ramp us quickly into things like Chinchino, which is always a good thing. It may be worth more than an Intrepid Sword, even for controlling decks, just to build the Cincino army more quickly. But it's still a skeptical one. I think Intrepid Sword is still going to be super important if we are playing any sort of control stuff going forward. Control gets very, very, like, hurt by the rotation. It gets pretty much gutted. So I wonder how that is going to work regardless. So I'm not certain where the Vigor Shake really fits right now. Next up we have Dream Ball. It allows you to play this card if you take it as one of your face-down prize cards, and then you can search your deck for any Pokemon, put it directly onto the bench. That can include, you know, VMAX's Stage 2 Pokemon. They do come directly into play as new bench Pokemon. So it's a really interesting way of searching out some additional cards. Again, it's one of these things where we do have some minus synergy. We have that Peonia coming out in our Chilling Reign set, most likely. If not, it'll come out in Evolving Skies, I guess. And that's how you're going to try and force the Dream Ball into the prizes, outside of just allowing it to enter your prizes just by start of game. You have, like, depending on how many Dream Balls you play, a high percent of them just being there, and then anytime you do take a knockout, you can reveal the Dream Ball, and suddenly you can get, you know, another Stage 2 in play or something like that, which is going to be the big sort of, like, payoff. The awkward thing is, I'm not sure I want to be playing a Peonia in a stage 2 deck already, and even when that's the case, the Dream Ball is a dead card until exactly the turn where you're able to play it alongside a Peonia. So it feels almost like a Nugget or something like that, where it has a big upside, but there's tons of times where it's just stuck in the hand and doing nothing for you. Very slow and reactive. You already have to have found a lot of Pokemon that are doing enough damage to take prize cards before you get any activation of Dream Ball whatsoever. So you can't build a strategy around getting a stage 2 like ramped quickly, because you need to somehow take prizes initially first, and sometimes your first knockout of the game is 3 prize cards, so the Dream Ball is only coming into like the mid to late game stages of the game. So I feel like you can't really build specifically around this too much unless we are going to have some easy like 1 prize Pokemon just sat in the active for us to knock out in a ton of different archetypes. If there's going to be Snorlaxes, if there's going to be Manaphy's or anything like that in Sword and Shield on formats, there could be some scope for it, but even then you have to activate it with a Peonia anyway, and these aren't researchers, these aren't Marnies, these aren't boss's orders, so yeah, I feel like it's a dreamer card for sure. Perfect name for the Bull Search. Next up we have Elemental Badge. If it's attached to a Vaporeon, Jolteon, or Flareon V, it pays 1 colorless less to use its attacks. That is a fantastic tool. -1 on your attack cost is going to make a lot of these attackers a lot more efficient. I imagine this includes the V Maxes as well. Just like how Scoop Up Net can't pick up V, it would also incorporate V Max. So I have to assume that's going to be the case. So yeah, that's pretty sweet. Reducing these attack costs is going to make them more efficient. We'll have to see what they do. Next up we have the Snow Leaf Badge. If it's attached to a Glaceon or Leafeon V, that Pokemon has no retreat cost or weakness. That sounds pretty important. I feel like Glaceon is probably going to be weak to metal, so that's going to be an important thing to remove in the new format, the post-rotation format. And gaining Floatstone on top, better than Air Balloon already, is going to be great for you. Maybe some people will still play Air Balloon because you may want to retreat out of other Pokemon that aren't the Glaceons and the Leafeons, but the upside of having no weakness seems really good. Leafeon also will want to not have fire weakness because Victini sounds like a very strong card post-row. Next up we have the the Moon and Sun Badge. If it's attached to an Espeon or an Umbreon V, when your opponent plays a supporter card from their hand, prevent all effects of that card done to this Pokemon. Interesting. So you can make yourself boss-proof with a VMAX, so you can try and power something up on the bench and literally have the first hit on something, which is kind of interesting, actually. There aren't many other disruption-style effects, maybe like Flannery, something like that, for special energy removal. So yeah, cool. You can make your Espeon/Umbreon sort of untouchable, at least from supporter cards. There is Umbreon VMAX, which brings Pokemon up into the active anyway, of course. But maybe you can make yourself boss-proof, and maybe that's a way that you can take hits with Espeon or Umbreon and then just retreat out of them. Maybe move energy over. I'm thinking like Umbreon and Weavile or something like that. Actually, Weavile rotates, so we can't use that guy. Maybe just like Bronzong Auroras, something like that. Then you could even use the Espeon instead. And you're just bouncing between these, and then you've got your Sun Badge or Moon Badge attached, or whatever it's going to be called. And they can't boss up to finish off these VMAXs. So you don't even need to Cheryl them. You just have an army of heavily damaged VMAXs, but you're moving between them. That could be pretty interesting. Next up we have a Ribbon Badge. If it's attached to a Sylveon, when it's knocked out from your opponent's attacks, your opponent takes 1 less prize card. Again, very appealing text. Reducing the amount of prizes you're giving up is always nice. It's like a specific life do for exactly Sylveon V/V Max. So you can make a very high hit point 2 prize Pokemon, basically, and that is also like a good idea. So as long as Sylveon is a powerful card, yeah, the Ribbon Badge is going to be a nice option for it. A couple of supporters then. We have Aroma Lady, draw 2, then remove all special conditions. No one cares about that. Gaudy allows you to look at the top 7 cards of your deck. Choose as many energy cards you find that as you like, reveal them, put them into your hand, then shuffle the remaining cards. Doesn't specify basics, so you can get special energies with Gaudy, but this really isn't a very strong effect. We've had things like Interviewer's Questions before, and yeah, it's very, very sketchy, very weak. We actually have Piers post-rotation, as well as Opal, which can be tutors for special energy cards. Opal, obviously, you need to flip the coin to get them. Piers is a guaranteed special energy search, as well as helping you get Zigzagoon or Crobats, which sounds like good value. So I don't know if Gaudy is going to be good enough here. It can be a dig into the deck for like psychic energies for good old Calyrex, but I think when you are already playing a high count of those energies plus Fog Crystal, you don't really need an effect like this. Water already has Buckets. Not really seeing why this is going to be important unless you're playing some wacky combination of different types all in one deck. Then Gordy can like help you cherry pick, because we don't have Spinner post rotation. We only have Energy Search, which isn't a great option. But ultimately, this is competing with ridiculous supporters, so he probably won't see any play. Next up, we have Fashion Mall. Once during each player's turn, that player may choose a tool attached to one of his or her Pokemon and return it to their hand. Okay. This isn't a super powerful effect. We've had Change Clothes Magina before. Didn't really see much play in Standard. I don't think there's too much that we want to like pick up and put down. It might make things like EXP Share that little bit more strong, because you can EXP Share, then send that thing that gained energy to the active, pick up the EXP Share, put it onto the bench, try and keep a chain going. Maybe that's a way that you could chain like a one prize deck with EXP Shares over and over. It's not really going to go from like defense mode into attack mode or something like that, where you pick up a big charm, turn it into a Vit Band or anything. That's going to be too cute, I think. Swell does go as well post-rotation, so stadiums like this that pretty much would never have a look in a Swell meta, maybe fairly useful just because we want to have bounces to path to the peak. So I wouldn't write this off because it's minor upside plus a stadium bounce in general, which is kind of interesting. I feel like this could be interesting for some of the Eevee Lucian tools that we've just seen. I guess that's what they're trying to go for here. If you can bounce Elemental Badge or something like that, that could be a pretty big deal. But yeah, my initial reaction was like EXP Share. Maybe if you played Tool Jammer and then like a number of other tools, you could then just like jam your opponents out. That could be interesting. And finally, we have the Treasure Energy, which also interacts with prizes, I believe. Look, yeah, if you take this as one of your face-down prize cards, before you put it into your hand, you can attach it to one of your Pokemon. Again, so it's Energy Ramp, which is always nice, but you already need to be having a fairly efficient attacker on your side, because you need to physically take the prize cards to take any activation of Treasure Energy. It's only a colorless attachment, so that already limits it to a number of, well, a finite number of Pokemon that can actually take advantage of those extra attachments. Hammers are still post-rotation, unfortunately, so having some defense against Hammer is pretty nice. Comparing this to like a Capture Energy, if you're playing a deck that is able to use colorless energy cards and is happy playing Special Energy, competing with Capture is a pretty tough ask because it's so good for just early game consistency, and it allows you to get some things like Snorlax into play that much more easier as well. So, yeah, it's a tough one. If you already tick those boxes, you have to compare this to, yeah, Capture, which is a hard ask, I think. And you have to be pretty desperate to need this ramp. Again, you could use things like EXP Share. You can use Galarian Moltres E-Switch if you just need a colorless attachment as well. That could be a universal engine now. So yeah, again, it's interacting with prize cards, which I can't be too on board with. So I think there's some VMV maxes down here that we'll look at first. So there's an Espeon VMAX, 310 hit point Psychic type VMAX that has Sun Notification. As long as this Pokemon is in play, each of your Pokemon that has any energy attached isn't affected by effects of your opponent's attacks. To your opponent's... Yeah, from your opponent's Pokemon. That was poorly worded, or I can't read. Isn't affected by effects from the attacks of your opponent's Pokemon. That makes much more sense, so if I read it properly, it's normal. What are the scariest effects that we're worried about right now? I guess there's some status conditions going around. Not a huge amount, though, post-rotation, I don't think. I don't feel like Poison a Turn is ever going to be a thing post-row. You can stop a Zapdos getting rid of special energies, which is good. A Galarian Zapdos, I guess. Couple things there. So yeah, it's a small bonus for you. And we also have the Max Psychic attack, which is 60 times the number of energy attached to your opponent's Pokemon. That's all of their Pokemon. That's a pretty scary multiplier. Quite often, early game, it's like 120 damage. I can see it going up to... Well, it's going to be very scary for Ghost Rider. Ice Rider can play around this quite well. Victini can play around it fairly well. Yeah, it looks like it's going around the 120 to 180 mark. The thing about the 120 mark is that if you're the one getting the first hit in, it's not really setting up a two-shot for a VMAX, which is kind of scary. So it's not super stable damage. Your opponent can play around it, which isn't great. So when I was talking about the hit and hide strat with the Moon Sun badge, maybe it's going to be the Umbreon that tries to do that, depending on its damage output. I can't really remember it. Anyway, we have a Flareon VMAX, 320 hit point fire type that has max explosion for fire, colorless. We do 100 times, discarding the top 5 cards of our deck. Here we go. This does 100 times the number of energy you discard in this way. So it's the new version of Typhlosion, right? Or the new version of Sandaconda, I guess is the most recent iteration of this. Discard the top 5 cards of your deck. How can we manipulate the top of our deck? Oranguru, Rotom Phone. Is there anything else that can manipulate the top of our deck? Not certain that there is. So yeah, there's no stable damage here. You need to really have... Well, you need 4 of the 5 to really be the dream and one-shot of VMAX. If you get like 2 of the 5, you're two-shotting. That's not a tough ask, I don't think. You'd have to warp your deck in quite a scary way. We don't have fire acceleration anymore. It's all gutted post-rotation. This does have the acceleration of its own tool to make it just fire, basically. Or fire colorless. Doesn't sound great to me. Sounds wacky. Sounds like a fun meme deck. Next up we have Vaporeon VMAX, 320 hit point water type that has Bubble Pod for a colorless. Choose a water Pokemon from your discard pile and put it onto your bench. Then attach up to 3 water energy from your discard pile to that Pokemon. Okay, so again, it's helping you cheat some evolution. This could be a way that you can get multiple VMAXs into play without having the threat of them just being bossed and KO'd when they're just their regular V form, which is nice. And it ramps 3 energy straight out the gate, which is kind of cool. Can it be a self-accelerator? Max Torrent does 100, and if the defending Pokemon already has damage counters on it, 100 more damage. That's pretty good. That's two-shotting. Relatively efficient when this could be a 2 energy attack cost. And you can Bubble Pod your first one. So I guess turn 2, you're trying to Bubble Pod a backup Vaporeon. Then turn 3, you're going for Max Torrent with Tool attached. If you've done Zigzagoon pings or some other form of damage, you're doing 200. This probably goes down, then you've got your next one hitting. Sounds kind of clunky. Turn 2 Bubble Pod is still quite slow, I think. Even though it's good acceleration. Like, compare this to Blitz, right? By turn 2, you're full blitzing, doing this effect, but also getting 150 damage into play. This is from the discard pile, which is kind of nice, and you can cheat Pokemon into play, but I don't think there's anything worth cheatsy doodling. Don't think there's any good enough stage 2s or anything like that. Most stage 2, like GXs, already rotate by that point. So yeah, I don't think there's too much we want to do there. Max Torrent isn't a bad attack, though. I can see that being decent. I think Jolteon is a pretty promising one. It only has 300 hit points, which is super duper low, and it's kind of sketch. But it has Max Thunderclap, does 100 and 100 more to one of your opponent's bench Pokemon that already has damage counters on it. Very efficient, especially because this can be 1 attachment plus tool. 200 damage just for free, basically. 1 attachment, 200 damage, no questions asked. You're spreading it around, so you probably need to play more than just this Jolteon, because you play into Cheryl, you're 4-shotting VMAXs, which is really bad. But you do have free retreat. You have that tool that can make your attack cost much cheaper. We do have telescopic sights, which can make the bench snipe more powerful, so maybe you're going to be setting up... Well, if you push VMAXs to the bench, you can 3-shot them. I guess the idea is you're trying to, like, only target down 2-3 prize Pokemon, but that's not always going to be a board state that you see. Maybe you can take an easy knockout on, again, a lower hit point 1 prizer that's trying to evolve or something like that, or trying to help people get set up in the early game. And then you're going to try and use Telescopic Sight and Zigzagoon pings to, like, finish things off all over the boards. Your opponent, again, can play around this, and Cheryl's a card, so it's not, like, guaranteed to be insane. Feels like it could easily be, like, a supports Pokemon in some deck, though, because this is just very efficient damage if you can get him built, and has inbuilt free retreat, which is just also very, very good. So Jolteon seems to be the most appealing of these 3. Vaporeon's certainly interesting, but I think it's a little bit slow. Let's jump back up to the top and see what else there is to discuss. So we have Pinsir. As long as it's in play, damage done by your single strike Pokemon isn't affected by resistance. Who cares? We have Leafeon V, 200 hit point grass type basic that has greening cells. Once during your turn, you may search your deck for a grass energy and attach it to one of your Pokemon. If you do use this, your turn ends. So it's early game ramp, which is not a bad thing for you. It's from the deck as well, which is a really good place to search from because it's not taking away any resources from the hand, and you don't need to set it up from the discard pile, so that's always nice. It's a free attachment, meaning that you can get into Leafeon VMAX's secondary attack turn 2, which is pretty nice. 170, heal 30. A little bit on the low side, but you still should be two-shotting VMAXs unless they're like big charming up or something like that, or play defensive items or healing or something. And you heal 30 from self. That can be pretty relevant. It keeps other like two-shot VMAXs out of your range. So that's kind of interesting. And then Grass Knot does 60x each energy in your opponent's active Pokemon's retreat cost. So there are some chunky VMAXs out there. I think Calirexes are both 2 retreat cost. I think Eternatus is 3. Yeah, there's some reasonable things here. This can give itself free retreat and no weakness. So having no weakness when you're trying to do some minor healing upside could be pretty nice. I just think this is too fair of a card, to be honest. Grass isn't a super strong typing that we're coming in with. The cheatsy doodle of greening cells is nice for the early game, but you can only use this like once, really. Turn 1. So that's really the main idea. So yeah. Let's move on to the next thingamajig here. I've got a Teams pop-up coming up. We have some irrelevant Pokemon. We have Eldegoss, which searches your deck for 2 energy, puts them straight into hand once during your turn. Pretty nice search. Good upside there. It is a stage 1, though. And I think if we're getting stage 1s into play, I'd prefer things like Cinccino. This is a guaranteed 2 cards, and it is deck thinning. I don't see this going into like a Ghost Cali or anything like that. Pulling out some energy isn't too bad. And I think that if we keep the Gossifleur that can get 3 Pokemon into play, that's reasonable, actually. That becomes a much better evolution line, because I'm pretty sure there's a Gossifleur that has Call for Family. So that's kind of interesting. Low-key reasonable. I think if the Gossifleur is important enough for decks, you could end up using it. We have a Flareon V, does 20 and search your deck for a fire energy, attach it to this Pokemon, then shuffle your deck. That's kind of fine. 120 and burn. Nothing too much to say there, and we know the VMAX is a bit of a meme. We have a Magcargo, which is flipping coins. Don't really care about that. For each counter on your benched single strike Pokemon. No, that's going to be way too much setup. We have Vaporeon V, so we already know that the V max is reasonable. This also gains triple draw, which is a nice consistency boost option. 90 hit and run isn't the best, pretty expensive. So it's not like the V max is powering up the Vs. It doesn't sound too important, but I mean, it's a nice consistency option. Again, the Vaporeon just feels very fair to me. Doesn't feel too broken. Roll together. Oh, have we got a round attack coming in this format? Oh, please. I need to reread some cards. Choose any combination of Pokemon and supporter from your discard pile, put them straight into the hand. Diving Rescue. Okay, this feels like a control card to me, because it gets back 3 in any combination of supporters and Pokemon. So I'm guessing the idea is that every turn you're going to get back a boss. And you can get back boss, Marill, Azumarill. They find their switch out, so you send up the next one. You grab boss, Marill, Azumarill, and loop that all the time. Or you grab Surge and annoying supporter. So yeah, scary control card. Look out for that. We have a Swampert that has the Mud Maker ability. Once during a turn, you may attach a water or fighting energy from your hand to one of your Pokemon. Attaching from hand is a really bad ability for a stage 2. Yeah, not a huge fan of that. We have better fighting acceleration from Colossal. We have better water acceleration from Frostlass and Melanie, so we don't need this effect. We have a Milotic. Whenever your opponent plays a supporter from the hand, prevent all effects of that card done to you or your hand. Okay, this is keeping you as a player safe from hand lock strats and anything like that. That's a nice thing to have in the game. I'm pretty happy to see it. I do think control, well, definitely the hand lock pieces often are getting done in outside of... so, wait, can this stop a Marnie from affecting you? Prevent all effects of that card done to you. Yeah, I guess this stops a Marnie. Alright, that's not bad. I don't think we're getting a stage 1 setup just for this, because I think Oranguru does a good enough job against Marnie. And you'd prefer to have things like Kricketune in play instead. But that's interesting. It's good to have a card like that to keep things in check. Search your deck for a card that evolves from this Pokemon, put it onto this Pokemon. Okay, that's nice to have an Ascension attack going straight into your VMAX. The VMAX has an ability, Crystal Veil, prevent all damage done to this Pokemon by attacks from your opponent's Pokemon VMAX. Okay, that is an annoying card, because this is naturally chunky as hell. We know that Zamazenta's hard to get through, and 1 or 2 one-prize Pokemon is not going to be enough to trade on a Glaceon, because its damage is 150 and 30 to one of your opponent's bench. Okay, so Vaporeon could be powering this guy up, for sure. This could also have no weakness, right? Because it can have that tool that gives it Air Balloon no weakness. That's a really, really annoying card. Huh. Well, Glaceon gets through Glaceon, so you can attack each other in mirror, which is something. Weakness to metal can be, yeah, subverted, as we say. I don't think many metal decks will be playing tool removal. This seems like a very, very good card. Water has good acceleration. You don't even need to play Vaporeon. You could just play Glaceon with Melanie and maybe the Inteleon line, so you can improve that 150 damage output and start using Inteleon to ping off VMAXs to actually threaten 2 shots and make the most of your 30 bench spread. That just seems like an out-the-box deck. Glaceon seems like the best evolution we've seen so far. Pretty sure. Yeah, that seems very, very strong. Walling VMAXs with this amount of hit points is just, like, super unfair. Super duper unfair. Okay, we have some more terrible one prizes. Jolteon. Natural free retreat is nice. The hit points are really low, though. We have some eels going on. We have an Espeon. 60 for 1 is good pressure. Yeah, that's pretty reasonable pressure. It's only on Vs, but still. It's not bad. What else are we talking about? We've got a Florgus. As many times as you'd like during your turn, you may move an energy from one of your Pokemon to another of your Rapid Strike Pokemon. Okay, interesting. So you can try and do some Cheryl shenanigans with Rapid Strike builds where you're moving those energies around. Or you can try and like power up Zero Aura out of nowhere after like attacking with a Blaziken or something, or attacking with an Urshi, and then you shift it all over. Stage 2 though, so you'll know what I'm going to say already. Sylveon. Once during a turn, you may search your deck for an item, put it into your hand, then shuffle your deck. If you do, your turn ends. Cherry picking an item card isn't too bad. It's comparably much worse to Intrepid, but if this is a decent VMAX, it could be a nice thing just to have, just to make sure you can get things going in the opening stages. Not a bad ability at all. And then we have Cherish Touch. This is a Psychic, weak to metal, 310 hit points. Attach energy from your hand to one of your bench, then heal 120. It's a pretty low power heal. Max Harmony does 70 and 30 more for each type of Pokemon on your bench. Ah, we have Rainbow Force back. Okay. Dream Gift getting an item card does get us more Ball Search to get some Pokemon into play. What sort of types of Pokemon do we want to have in play? We'll probably have things like Dedenne, Crobat, Kricketune, and then like maybe some evolutions, I guess, is what they're trying to push for us. What's the best acceleration for this guy? As a Psychic type, I mean, we can't really use Cali that easily because we want to have a different type to Psychic. It is colors though, so we can use all sorts of acceleration. Interesting. It's expensive, and it is weak to metal, so probably not good enough. But a nice Rainbow Force style attack probably doesn't hit enough damage out there. You're gonna get around that sort of like 150 to 180 mark, and again, that's not setting the world on fire, is it? We have some more terrible one prize Pokemon. More terrible one prize Pokemon. We have Umbreon, 30 and your opponent can't retreat. 80 if they have damage counters, 80 more. Reasonable. And the VMAX apparently is pretty good because it's got Dark Signal. Once during your turn, when you play this to evolve, you may switch one of your opponent's bench Pokemon with that active. Obviously a pretty strong effect. Don't get fooled, this isn't like immediately Lycanroc in everything, you know, because Lycanroc had great type coverage in the format, had an insane GX attack in most matchups, and had Brooklet to get your basics out pretty quickly. And and this just hits vanilla 160, which isn't good damage output, not good enough to carry itself. But this could still be worthwhile in Eternatus, could be worthwhile in a couple other decks. Like we say, we could try and play this with like a Bronzong Aurora type box, because we have 2 colorless and a dark in the attack cost. You can use that tool, so then you can keep like bouncing between different Umbreons. You just like hit 160, take a hit, retreat, because you've got that tool on, they can't boss you up, and then you just attack with another one, and you're always going to have the gust on your side, so you're going to make the most out of your like quite poor damage output, but still just enough to deal with most VMAXs, and you can obviously play things like Zigzagoon and stuff like that to improve that. So yeah, it seems like a pretty solid card actually. A little bit slow, but if you try and do that Bronzong Shenanigans deck, that's going to be annoying to deal with. And it's easier to build than like a Bronzong Cheryl, because you're using tools rather than supporters, so you can actually draw your cards with research, which is kind of nice. We have a Zoroark that has Illusion Transformation. Search your discard pile for a stage 1, excluding any Zoroark. Discard this Pokemon and all cards attached to it. Then put the new Pokemon in this one's position. So, pretty interesting card. Love this card for Cube, by the way. Very high power card in Cube. The upsides here, so it allows you to get additional stage 1s like straight back into play. This can get VMAXs, right? So one upside is you could put down a Zorua and not help your opponent's prize race in certain situations. Like if you're playing Orbeetle, for example, and you've allowed someone to KO a Snorlax, if you put down an Orbeetle V, they can easily gust that, take 2 prizes, then they only need to beat 1 VMAX to win the game. Whereas if you put down a Zorua, they gust KO it doesn't change their prize map. So they probably won't touch it, and then you can Zoroark it into an Orbeetle VMAX, and then you've got 2 going. So you can do some weird like prize disruption with this approach. You can also play some like tech stage 1s, but I really don't think the format's going to be slow enough to play tech stage 1s whatsoever. So if you're thinking about like the Greedent, or just playing like one Cinccino or something like that, or playing multiple stage 1s, I don't feel like Zoroark is like that answer. I feel that's going to be too clunky still. So, but yeah, I think this is a super creative effect, and there could be some interesting paths for it. I need to think a little bit more about it, but from the offset, I'm still skeptical that we're playing single prize Pokemon in general in a format where we still have not seen any bench protection whatsoever. So yeah. We have some single strike Grimmsnarl. He can do silly damage, but he's a stage 2, so who cares? We have Meowth with probably my favorite artwork of the set. Amazing. Not doing too much else. We have an Eevee searching out V Pokemon, but we don't really need that boy. And we have that Smeagol to end things up. Doing 30. Reveal any number of basic energy in your hand. Does 30 more for each type of energy you revealed in this way. So it's trying to do a... Oh, sorry, 30 plus 30 more. So it's trying to be like a Baby Blounds, but you need to have like the rainbow of energies going on. And you don't discard those cards, so it means that you're like really weak to Marnie and that sort of stuff. And you probably already need to play Twin Energy because you're a 2 colorless attack cost. So 30 plus 30, not the scariest multiplier, and you need to have a really wonky deck with a silly number of energies. So not going to be more than a meme. So yeah, that's my initial impressions. I think the Moon and Sun badge seems very, very strong. For Umbreon. It could make Umbreon a build around in its own right. Umbreon seems like a strong card just in general because it is gusting, but don't think it's going to be immediately as good as Lycanroc. For the Elemental badge, I think Jolteon is the most promising of the bunch. Glaceon also seems very solid when you can give it this tool for no weakness. That makes it a wall into a ton of different matchups. Ribbon badge does mean that Sylveon is going to be a tanky beat stick that only gives up 2 prize cards upon KO. So maybe I undersold that Sylveon. Still be difficult to power up, but I guess with your different type coverage, you can find a Pokemon that can give you some acceleration for some sort of typing. So yeah, some interesting cards. I think this is obviously going to be geared mostly towards collectors because there's a ton of Eevees going on. That's not to say that we don't have some treats. That Glaceon looks insane. So yeah, Glaceon, Umbreon, looking like the standout cards, to be honest. Being made possible by some of those cool tool cards as well. So yeah, let me know your thoughts of this set. Let me know what you're thinking about post-rotation and all that good stuff. We're going to be getting underway with Chilling Reign pretty soon, and I'm going to be posting the community ratings this weekend. So keep an eye out for that, because I really want to get your input so we can get that set review on the go. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Hope you did enjoy my ramble, and I'll see you tomorrow for another video. Cheers.